When Designs Escaped Baskets focuses on the visual language of basket designs of the Hoopa, Karuk, Wiyot, and Yurok tribes. The exhibit stitches together a timeline from pre-contact to today, focusing on moments when designs grew and changed for trade within new materials and more. Designs' breadth of shape and form are shown across baskets within the Clark Museum collection. We are lucky to have interviews from the late 1800s and early 1900s with local Hoopa, Yurok, and Karuk informants who were present during pre-contact times. Weaver sentiments are recorded in ethnologist Lila O'Neill's Yurok Karuk Basket Weavers from 1932, as well as Alfred Kroeber's Basket Designs of the Indians of Northwestern California from 1905. From these interviews, we have some basis for what basket designs functioned like before trade changed them. These basket designs changed over time, both in form and what they were referred to as. Across the exhibit, the design names may be unfamiliar or not identified as you might think. We are working across a continuum of knowledge both from anthropologists and weavers' own words. Finally, designs moved from baskets as a means of survival of cultural information in the face of colonization. Added is the inherent innovation of weavers and native craftspeople that kept basket designs alive for weaving to be revitalized. In the exhibit, you will see designs spanning across generations on numerous forms. Local indigenous designs were born as part of baskets but have escaped over time to be kept alive. Some of the baskets include a design called Old Designs that date before 1850, and these are ones that we can trace newer designs from. One example is Old Obsidian Blade that morphed from stacked rectangles to a parallelogram shape. The immediate post-contact period forested shifting socioeconomic factors and monetary needs onto tribal peoples in the region, and trade of basketry became a way for families to keep afloat in this new world. The arts and crafts movement created a demand for Native American artwork. Non-native collectors purchased from weavers in the area or through dealers such as Brazard's locally or Grace Nicholson further south. Women traded baskets that were of interest, such as basket caps, trays, and more. Increasingly due to requests and what was finding to be sellable, the weavers created more fanciful forms that were inspired by Western forms and designs. Lampshades, vases, wall pockets, all decorated with any number of design forms that were outside the generally accepted visual continuum. By the 1930s, with the economic downturn, there was less and less demand for basketry. Added to this were the factors of government efforts to assimilate native populations into Western ways of living by any means. This ranged from children being removed from homes and forced hundreds of miles away to boarding schools that forbade children to speak their own languages or speak of their home cultures, to land grab policies that forced native peoples from their homeland onto smaller and smaller areas. Basketry mats were an invention for the trade by basket weavers. They were quick to make, an experienced weaver could complete one in as little as a few hours of work. They are an opportunity to work through designs and are much like embroidery or quilt samplers. Weavers finished them with the now iconic doily-like stick whorl. The mats were possibly inspired by woven or crocheted pot holders. At times you will see these used in such a manner, or hung on the wall. The Hoopa Pottery Guild started in 1951, when Laura Black, a non-native field nurse working on the Hoopa reservation, noticed sources of clay on her journeys in the valley. After Black introduced the pottery-making process, she recruited other women from the valley into the endeavor. The Pottery Guild used sources of clay from the valley and incorporated forms and designs from the basketry in the area. While local tribal people used baskets for all of their containers in the old days, basketry materials had become increasingly hard to obtain, and fewer women wove. According to Vivian Hailstone, a Karuk Yurok and member of the Hoopa tribe, as quoted in a 1967 newspaper article, pottery filled the void. Quote, "After the white came in here, they tried to rule all of us, tell us what to do and take things away from us, like weaving baskets. When we saw somebody coming, we'd hide it, just grab everything and throw it behind a chair or some other place and cover it up with a towel. Well, after the government schools closed down and everybody came back, most of the younger people had to learn Indian ways all over again. A lot of them never really did go back to it. Baskets were really dying out. Hardly anyone was making them anymore because they had no market for it. They were scared to go out and sell it to someone, so we started making pottery." The guild created beautiful pumpkin orange vessels decorated with black, white, red, and yellow designs across the glossy surfaces. Much like weavers at the turn of the century, these potters used clay as a new material to record designs as they remembered them. swallowtail, frog's hand, obsidian blade designs, and newer designs not bounded by counting sticks and more were painted on the pottery. The group built a pottery studio in Hoopa near the main part of town, now near the Hoopa tribal office. It was lost in the 1964 flood, and in collaboration with community members, another was constructed in Hoopa on the Presbyterian church grounds. Josephine Peters, one of the key members of the Pottery Guild, had this to say on their endeavors. Quote, "We tried to save the basket designs by putting it on pottery, and then finally the weavers started coming back. We taught it in the school, we had evening gatherings, and we'd gather materials. I had people come down here to the house to sit down and learn. With the kids in school, we'd start out with maybe 20 to 23 students. When I ended up, I had 2 left, but the 2 that stuck with it, they're really good weavers today. Some of them would come back to it later." Pottery in the Guild continued past the dissolution of the Guild in the 1970s and 80s, when the building was taken back by the church. Potters instead set up home studios with kilns and other materials and set about taking in interested students as they saw fit. Examples of newer pottery items can be seen alongside older Hoopa Pottery Guild items, such as a wonderful king snake design pot by Roger Matson and a wall plaque by Esther McCulloch, both of Hoopa. Vivian Hailstone and Josephine Peters both set up storefronts in Hoopa, Vivian the Aikwee gift shop in 1959 and Josephine the Red Wing Indian handicrafts in the late 1960s, where they both hosted basketry for sale by local weavers and other crafts such as pottery and jewelry, giving the local crafters a storefront to put their wares out there for the community and small tourists.